I woke up to the sound of machines. Soft beeping. Rhythmic. Cold. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. My eyes struggled to open, heavy like someone had glued them shut. My body felt distant, like it wasn't mine anymore. Then the smell hit me. Hospital. A sharp panic rose in my chest, but even that felt slow, delayed, like my emotions were underwater. "Emily, can you hear me?" A voice. Gentle, careful. I blinked. Everything was blurry at first, shapes melting into each other. Then slowly a face came into focus. A nurse. I tried to speak, but my throat burned. Dry. Empty. "Water," I whispered. She nodded quickly, helping me sip through a straw. The water felt like life itself. "You're okay," she said softly. "The surgery went well." Surgery. Right. The word unlocked something in my mind. Fragments came rushing back. The pain, the diagnosis, the fear, signing those forms with shaking hands. And him, my husband, Ryan. I turned my head slightly, scanning the room. My heart beat a little faster. "Where's Ryan?" I asked. There was a pause. It was small, barely noticeable, but I felt it. The nurse's expression shifted just for a second. "He stepped out," she said. Something in her tone didn't sit right, but I was too weak to question it. My eyelids drooped again, exhaustion pulling me under like a wave. When I woke up again, the room was quieter, dimmer. Hours had passed, maybe more. This time, my body felt slightly more awake, still heavy, still fragile, but present. And still empty. Ryan wasn't there. That was strange. He was the type who didn't leave. At least, that's what I thought. He used to sit beside me for hours, even during small checkups, holding my hand, brushing my hair back, whispering that everything would be okay. I swallowed hard. "Excuse me," I called weakly as a nurse passed by. She stepped in. Different nurse this time. Older. "Yes, honey?" "My husband. Ryan? Has he been here?" Another pause. This one was longer. She looked at me in a way I couldn't understand. Not pity, not exactly. Something else. "Do you have your phone?" she asked instead. I frowned slightly. "No?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I'll be right back." That was strange. Why would she ask that? A knot formed in my stomach. Minutes later, she returned, but she wasn't alone. A man walked in behind her. Suit, calm posture, professional expression. My chest tightened. "I'm sorry," I said, confused. "Who are you?" He stepped forward slightly. "My name is Daniel Foster. I'm a lawyer." My heart dropped. A lawyer? Why would there be a lawyer here? "For who?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Another pause. Too many pauses. "For your husband," he said. Everything inside me went still. Cold. "What?" I whispered. He opened a folder slowly, deliberately, and then he said the words that shattered everything. "While you were in surgery, your husband filed for divorce." Silence. Not the quiet kind, the kind that screams inside your head. I stared at him, waiting for him to correct himself, to laugh, to say it was some kind of mistake. But he didn't. "No," I said, shaking my head weakly. "No, that doesn't make sense. He wouldn't—" "I'm sorry," he interrupted gently. The documents have already been processed. My hands started trembling. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. I had gone into that surgery believing I had a husband waiting for me, and now I woke up alone, divorced, just like that. My chest tightened as memories flooded in. The way he kissed my forehead before they wheeled me in. The way he said, "I'll be right here when you wake up." The way I believed him. Tears slipped down my temples, disappearing into my hair. "He promised," I whispered. No one replied, because promises don't matter when the truth finally shows up. And the truth was simple. Ryan didn't leave while I was sleeping. He left before that. I just didn't see it.
The room felt smaller after that, like the walls had quietly moved closer, trapping me inside a reality I didn't agree to. I stared at the ceiling, trying to breathe normally, but every breath felt wrong, forced. Like my body didn't understand how to exist without him in the picture anymore. "How long?" I asked. The lawyer looked at his file. "He filed this morning, during your procedure." Of course he did. Of course he chose that moment, when I couldn't speak, couldn't react, couldn't fight back. A hollow laugh escaped my lips, weak and broken. "That's efficient," I muttered. The nurse beside him shifted uncomfortably. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but I barely heard her. My mind was already racing, jumping from memory to memory, searching for answers, searching for signs, something I missed, because there had to be something. People don't just wake up one day and do this, right? Right? Was there someone else? I asked, my voice barely holding together. He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. My stomach dropped. "Please," I said, my voice cracking, "don't lie to me." He exhaled slowly. "There is another party involved, yes. Another party." Such a clean, professional way to say it. Like it wasn't a person. Like it wasn't betrayal. Like it wasn't the complete destruction of my life. I closed my eyes, and suddenly, everything started making sense. The late nights, the sudden distance, the way his phone was always face down, the way he stopped looking at me the same. I felt stupid. No, not stupid. Blind. "I want to see the papers," I said. The lawyer nodded and stepped closer, placing them carefully on the small table beside my bed. My hands trembled as I reached for them. Each page felt heavier than the last. Cold, official, final. There it was. My name, his name, signatures, dates. Everything perfectly in place, everything planned. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't impulsive. This was calculated. And that hurt more than anything. "You can take your time," the lawyer said quietly. Time? Time for what? To process the fact that the man I trusted with my life had already planned his exit, while pretending everything was fine? While holding my hand? I let out a shaky breath. "Did he say anything?" I asked. The lawyer paused, then nodded. He left a message. My heart clenched. Of course he did, because disappearing quietly wouldn't be dramatic enough. What did it say? The lawyer looked at me carefully, like he was deciding whether I was strong enough to hear it. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. He said, "It's better this way." I froze. That's it? That's all? Years of marriage reduced to one sentence? "It's better this way." I laughed again, this time louder, more broken. "Better for who?" I asked, my voice sharp now. No one answered, because we all knew the answer. Better for him. Always him. After they left, the room felt unbearably quiet. I stared at the papers again, my mind slowly shifting from shock to something else, something darker,
something sharper. Convenient until I wasn't. A tear slipped down my cheek, but this time it didn't feel like sadness. It felt like something else, something stronger. "You think you won," I whispered to the empty room. My voice was quiet, but steady. "You think you walked away clean." I slowly turned my head toward the window, the faint light reflecting in my eyes. A new feeling settled inside me, cold, focused. You have no idea what you just started. Anger. It started small, a flicker, but it grew quickly, spreading through my chest like fire. He didn't just leave me, he planned it. He waited for the perfect moment, the moment I was at my weakest. And then he walked away, clean, easy, like I was nothing. My fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. No, not nothing. Convenient, that's what I was. I didn't cry the next day, not when the nurse checked my vitals, not even when they brought me food I couldn't eat, not even when I saw my reflection in the mirror for the first time. Pale, weak, different. No, the tears were gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Clarity. Because once the shock fades, the truth becomes sharper. And the truth was simple. Ryan didn't just betray me, he underestimated me. "Do you have someone who can pick you up when you're discharged?" the nurse asked gently. I looked at her. For a moment, I almost said his name. Habit, but I stopped myself. "No," I said calmly, "I'll arrange something." And I would, because I had to. Because there was no one left to rely on. At least, that's what he thought. 2 days later, I was discharged. Walking out of that hospital felt strange, like stepping into a new version of my life I didn't choose. The air felt different, colder, sharper. I adjusted my coat, ignoring the slight pain in my body as I moved. Physical pain was nothing compared to what I'd already felt. A car pulled up. Not his. Of course not. I got in without hesitation, because I wasn't looking back anymore. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Too quiet. It didn't feel like home. It felt like a place someone had already left behind. I walked slowly through the living room, my eyes scanning everything. Nothing looked different, but everything felt wrong, like the truth had been hiding in plain sight all along. Then I saw it, the empty space in the closet. His side. Gone. Clothes, shoes, everything. Removed. Clean. Efficient. Just like the divorce papers. I let out a slow breath. No anger this time. No tears. Just confirmation. This was real. I moved deeper into the house, each step more certain than the last, until I reached the bedroom, our bedroom. I stopped at the door. For a second, memories tried to pull me back. Laughter, late-night conversations, quiet moments. But I pushed them away, because those memories belonged to a version of him that didn't exist anymore. I stepped inside, and that's when I saw it. A small envelope, placed neatly on the bed. Of course, another message, another piece of his perfectly planned exit. I picked it up slowly, his handwriting written on it. Familiar. I opened it and began to read. "Emily, I know this is hard, but it's the right decision. We've both been unhappy for a long time, even if you don't see it yet. I didn't want to make things harder for you before your surgery. This way, it's cleaner. I hope one day you understand. Ryan." Cleaner. There was that word again. Like our marriage was something to tidy up, like I was something to erase neatly. I stared at the letter for a long moment. Then I folded it carefully, placed it back on the bed, and smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything I needed to know. He didn't feel guilty. He felt justified. And that changed everything. I walked to the dresser slowly, opening the drawer where I kept important documents. My fingers moved with purpose now, no hesitation, no doubt. Because if he thought this was over, he was wrong, very wrong. I pulled out a folder, one he didn't know about, one I never thought I'd need. But life has a strange way of preparing you for things you don't expect. Inside were documents, accounts, information, things Ryan had trusted me with, things he never thought I'd use. I closed the folder slowly, a calm smile forming on my lips. "You wanted clean?" I whispered softly. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me, stronger now, different. Let's see how clean this really gets. I didn't rush. That was the first rule. People like Ryan expected reactions, emotional explosions, desperation, chaos. But silence? Silence made them uncomfortable. And I wanted him uncomfortable. 3 days later, I made my first move. Not dramatic, not loud, just precise. I made a call. "Hi," I said calmly. "I'd like to schedule a meeting." The voice on the other end responded professionally. "Of course. Name?" "Emily Carter." A pause. Recognition. "Good. I believe my husband already contacted you," I added. Another pause. "Yes, he did." "Perfect," I said softly. "Then you already have the file." The meeting was set, and for the first time since I woke up in that hospital bed, I felt in control. When I walked into that office, I wasn't the same woman who had signed those surgery forms. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't unaware. I was focused, sharp, awake. The lawyer looked at me differently this time, not with pity, with curiosity. "Mrs. Carter?" "Ms. Carter," I corrected calmly. He nodded. "Of course." I placed my folder on the table. "I'd like to review everything," I said, "and make some adjustments." Hours passed. Details were discussed, documents reviewed, options explored. And with every decision, every signature, I felt something shift inside me. Not pain, power. Because Ryan thought he controlled the ending of our story, but he forgot one thing. I was part of that story too. A week later, he called. Of course he did, because silence doesn't last forever, especially when things don't go as planned. I looked at the screen. His name. Ryan. For a moment, I just watched it ring. Then I answered. "Hello?" There was a pause, like he wasn't expecting me to sound normal. "Emily," he said, "I think we need to talk." I smiled slightly. "Do we?" His tone shifted, confused now. "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned back in my chair, calm. "It means," I said slowly, "you already said everything you needed to say." Another pause, longer this time. "I just want to make sure we handle this properly," he added. Properly. There it was again. That word. Always so clean, so controlled. "You mean the divorce?" I asked. "Yes." I let out a soft breath. "That's already being handled." Silence. "What?"
I met with a lawyer, I said casually. I'm reviewing everything. His voice tightened slightly. That's not necessary. It is, I interrupted gently. Another pause. This one felt different, uneasy. Good. Emily, what are you doing? I smiled again. This time it reached my eyes. I'm just making sure things are fair. Fair. A word he didn't expect. A word he didn't plan for.
After the call ended, I sat there quietly, not shaking, not breaking, just still. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. It was about balance, truth, and consequences. Weeks passed, and slowly everything settled, legally, emotionally, practically. But one thing never changed: me. I wasn't the woman who woke up in that hospital bed anymore. I was someone new, someone who saw clearly, someone who understood that endings aren't always losses. Sometimes they're beginnings. The day everything finalized, I stood by the window, sunlight warming my face. I thought about that moment again, waking up, hearing the words, feeling like my world had ended. But it hadn't. It had just shifted. And maybe, just maybe, that shift was exactly what I needed. I picked up my phone, a small smile forming on my lips, not because of him, but because of me, because I made it through, stronger, sharper, unbreakable, and this time I wasn't waiting for anyone to stay.